Maybe I should just save the state the cost of room and board.
Hello survivors and welcome to Survivor's Guild, part of the Mutant Fam Horror Consortium, a community of like-minded individuals working together to create content and build relationships by and for fans of the drive-in. Go check out mutantfam.com for all the podcasts, channels, and shops that are part of the Mutant Fam. Today, we take a look at 2009's Wrong Turn 3, Left 4 Dead. But before we get started, go ahead and hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on the rest of the franchise. Now I hope you like finding an overturned truck full of bags of money that you didn't earn, because this movie is getting spoiled. Wrong Turn 3, Left 4 Dead. Written by Connor Delaney and Alan McElroy, directed by Declan O'Brien, and starring Tom Frederick, Janet Montgomery, Tom McKay, Tamer Hassan, Gil Colleran, Christian Contreras, and Jake Curran. Wrong Turn 3 is about a bus full of convicts that crashes while transporting the convicts to a different penitentiary, who then must fight for survival against Three Finger, the Wrong Turn series' primary antagonist. We open up to a group of friends, Alex, Trey, Sophie, and Brent, kayaking down a river in what must be the West Virginian wilderness. They get off the river to hang out and to get high, when Sophie and Brent decide to get dirty. But Three Fingers, who hates it when people have fun, decides to ruin their good time with a couple of arrows. One through Sophie's back, which also goes through Brent's hand, and the other through the back of her head, which pokes out her eye.
Hold them forever.
Landing Sophie as our first deposit in our meat bank. Brent takes off to save himself, while Trey takes an arrow from Three Fingers and then follows suit, only to biff it and have Three Fingers stab him with a big spike he found, making Trey the second addition to Three Fingers' plate. Meanwhile, Brent snags one of Three Fingers' traps, slicing him into 3 pieces for the third kill of the third movie. Lots of threes going on here. Cut to Grafton Penitentiary, where a few convicts are planning on escaping during a routine prison transfer. We are introduced to Skinhead Floyd and Mexican cartel member Chavez, who are begrudgingly working together to make Chavez a free man by planning for some of their men outside the prison to break them out during the transport. But unbeknownst to them, the transport has been moved up a week. And we find this out when we are introduced to Nate, Walter, and Preslow, who will be overseeing this operation. We hear from the warden of the penitentiary, Warden Ladu, and we are also introduced to 2 U.S. Marshals who will be involved as well, one of which will be posing as a convict himself to try to get info from Chavez. U.S. Marshal Davis and U.S. Marshal Juarez. Juarez will be posing as inmate Willie Juarez during the transport. We then cut over to Sheriff Carver and Deputy Lane, who get a call about some missing college students and need to go investigate. Cut back to the guards, getting everyone ready for the transfer, and we get introduced to a couple new characters. Crawford, who was in for stealing cars, and Brandon, a vet, who may have intentionally or accidentally murdered a guy.
So I pushed the guy, he fell, and he hit his head. Okay, I'm innocent.
Yeah, so am I.
And after the cons are locked up and loaded onto the bus, we are off to the races in a prison bus. And by races, I mean racism, as we are treated to a bunch of con talk on the bus trip, complete with racial slurs, potty mouth, and Hitler references. Luckily, we are also treated to some awkward green screen driving. What's up, couldn't find a road to drive on? Or the front of a bus? A little later, the bus stops at a police station for a quick restroom break before they continue their trek. Nate gets to catch up with Sheriff Carver since he was raised in this area, and we then cut over to Three Fingers, who is helping his nephew, Three Toes, set up a trap. Aw, a family that slays together stays together, and likewise, a family that breeds with each other bleeds for each other. There is nothing closer than a family that shares the same DNA, over and over and over. Back over with our main group, Sheriff Carver gives Nate his number and tells him to call when they arrive at their destination. But while they are traveling, a mysterious tow truck starts threatening them and then ramming them until they drive off the road and roll the bus. As it wrong turns out, the bus also catches fire, so the occupants must make their way out as fast as possible. Unfortunately, when they make their way out, Floyd fakes a tummy ache while Chavez headbutts Nate and commandeers his firearm, but Preslow persuades Chavez to drop the pistol by pointing a shotgun at his skull.
Drop the gun, or I'll blow your face off.
But his probity is cut short when a knife is thrown into his neck,
State the cost of room and board.
landing Preslow as the fourth deposit in our meat bank. Floyd mistakes the assailant for a friend, but the foe starts sending arrows towards the inmates before Chavez shoots his pistol and shotgun. That's a fully automatic shotgun. In the foe's general direction. When the foe seems to have retreated, Chavez sends Nate back into the burning bus to retrieve the keys to the shackles that bind them. But he opts to retrieve Walter, who is badly injured but still alive, and the two of them escape just in the nick of time before the bus randomly explodes. As the group make their way through the West Virginian wilderness, following Nate, who's the only one who has been in this area before, they get surprised by Alex, who jumps out of the foliage and attacks, mistaking them for the antagonistic anthropophaga. She recounts the story of her friend's demise, but all Chavez hears is blah 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 rafts, and realizes that Alex's dead friend's rafts are his ticket out of here, so they send her to lead the way. And as it wrong turns out, as they continue their trek, they come across an old armored vehicle complete with cash still inside, along with an old pistol that Nate hides and slips over to Walter. Chavez orders everyone to carry 2 bags of money each, even Walter, who can barely walk on his own. But when Walter cannot physically do it, he puts Plan B into action by pulling the pistol on Chavez, only for nothing to happen. Chavez, who likes threatening people but hates being threatened, does the ever-suffering Walter a solid and sends him directly into our meat bank. But if we are going to be honest, we all know who really killed him, and his name rhymes with Nate. As the group continues, they run into the trap that Three Fingers had helped Three Toes set up earlier in the movie, and then they spring a Three Toes when the trap misses them entirely. How the hell long was he waiting in the leaves? Chavez, who's not too fond of children, pulls out the pistol and shoots the little tyke right in the chest. And to send a message to the inbred hillbilly who is hunting them, Chavez sends this little mutant right into our meat bank at number 6.
Hold it down.
The crew makes their way to Alex's friend's rafts, and before putting the money and themselves into them, Nate stabs a hole in one of the rafts in hopes of getting his ass beat by Chavez, and Chavez delivers.
None of it.
So, why'd you do that?
A short distance away, Three Fingers discovers the remains of his nephew that the inmates left for him. Cut back to the group as they continue their adventure when they come upon Preslow's keys hanging from a tree. Chavez reaches for them like an idiot. Luckily, Secret Agent Willie pushes him out of the way of the oncoming scythe, landing himself as our 7th deposit in the meat bank. A little later, our group comes to some sort of lumber yard and finds tools there to get the chains off of themselves. They come across the tow truck parked on a logging access road, and Chavez sends Crawford to jack it. But it wrong turns out that Three Fingers was in the tow truck ready to trap whoever approached it. And when Crawford gets close, a net of razor wire ensnares him, and Three Fingers takes off and drags him down the rope. Luckily for us, Three Fingers drops him off, right into our meat bank at number 8. Later on down the road, Floyd and Chavez stop for a moment to settle their grievances like men, with a bare-knuckle brawl which gives Nate and Alex a chance to escape and Brandon a chance to stand around and watch. Eventually, Chavez gets the upper hand and he and Brandon strike a deal, and Brandon agrees to help him get out of the wilderness in exchange for Chavez's men to let Brandon go without any trouble. A little bit later, they can hear Nate and Alex, and they hide the money by a tree and get the jump on the other two. They assault and assimilate them back into the group and discover that the watchtower that Nate had been leading them to has been burned down. In his disappointment, Chavez prepares to finally kill Nate, but before he can fulfill his vow, Sheriff Carver shows up to stop it.
Drop the dog! Cowboy! Get the dog off me!
But Sheriff Carver's assistance is cut short when Three Fingers drops a big spike straight down his gullet, making Sheriff Carver option number 9 on our menu. While the group is busy with Three Fingers, Floyd is busy wandering around the wilderness before he finally finds the stash of cash that Chavez and Brandon hid by the tree, and he takes off with it. We then cut over to U.S. Marshal Davis, who is making plans on how the marshals are going to find the missing prisoners. Chavez discovers that his money is missing and can hear Floyd a little ways away screaming racist obscenities, and he starts throwing the money all over the place. Chavez confronts the wounded white supremacist before Three Fingers nails him with a Molotov cocktail, setting Floyd and the remaining bags of money ablaze. Charbroiling Floyd all the way to number 10 on our meat bank deposits. The group follows Three Fingers until they find his running truck in a small clearing. Chavez, being an activist for full equality, sends Alex out to see what the hillbilly wants. Chavez uses a shotgun to convince her that the homicidal hillbilly may be a safer bet than staying put. And as Alex makes her way toward the truck, Three Fingers uses fire bad to separate her from the group, and the anthropophagi abducts her. Chavez, not at all upset that Alex is gone, then decides it's time to ditch Nate as well. But before he can dispatch him, Brandon knocks him out, and the duo sets out to find Alex, who has been hauled to the Hillbilly Hell House LLC. But the good news is that Deputy Lane is there. The bad news is she's just about dead. And she's dead, making Deputy Lane number 11 on our big old pile of meat. Meanwhile, Chavez, who was woken back up, runs into Three Fingers and decides to settle this mano y mutante. The two take turns thrashing each other before Three Fingers gets the upper three-fingered hand and puts an end to Chavez's reign of terror by cutting open his skull and eating his brain right in front of him. Talk about adding insult to injury, landing Chavez as item number 12 in this dreadful buffet. Cut over to Nate, who has discovered the Hillbilly Hell House of Horrors, LLC. Nate finds and frees Alex, but on their way out of the Shack of Slaughter, they get a surprise visit from the master of Slaughtermonies, old Three Fingers himself. Alex and Nate eventually get the upper hand and take off with Three Fingers' truck. But it wrong turns out this tenacious trapper can teleport and he hitches himself onto the hijacked pickup and starts hacking at the roof until Nate takes the truck off-road and bunts the bumpkin into oblivion. But, as a minor inconvenience to our protagonists, the truck bursts into flames. But luckily Brandon is close by and sets to free them from the burning wreckage. But after dragging Alex to safety, we then see that Three Fingers is not dead yet, and we begin the epic last battle between hero Nate and villain Three Fingers. Oh, never mind. And just as quickly as Three Fingers returned, he flops into our meat bank at number 13. Nate then makes a deal with Brandon to let him go free, and he runs off into the wilderness while Nate and Alex await the arrival of the U.S. Marshals. A short time later, we see Nate open up the doors of the long-lost money truck in an attempt to claim the life he'd always wanted. Unfortunately, his judgment of Brandon was wrong, and it wrong turns out that Brandon was a bad dude all along, landing Nate as our 14th deposit in our meat bank.
Never trust a con.
But while Brandon is busy collecting the cash, a mystery character shows up behind him with a bloody mace, and off-camera adds Brandon to our deposits at number 15. And the credits roll. Now, I have no definitive answers as to who the mystery killer is at the end of the movie. Some say it's Three Fingers, some say it's a new mutant, no one says it's Three Toes. I could assume that it's Three Fingers, but I'm not going to because I don't want to make a withdrawal. And the later movies take place prior to this one, or are in no way connected, so I guess we will never know. So now, to find out, what are your chances of suffering survivor's guilt? This is where we take a look at our main characters and the death that surrounds them to determine what your chances are of surviving this movie. Starting this list strong with Sophie, Trey, and Brent as our first 3 deposits, followed up with Preslow and then Walter making 5. We then get our 6th body in the murder of Three Toes, followed by Willie and Crawford to make 8. We then have Sheriff Carver coming in at number 9, followed by Flaming Hot Floyd at 10, Deputy Lane lands at number 11, followed by Chavez at 12, and then Three Fingers at number 13. And finally rounding them out with Nate and Brandon at the 14th and 15th deposits. Now, let's look at our survivors. We've got Alex, along with the warden from the penitentiary, and U.S. Marshal Davis, which means that out of a total of 18 characters, only 3 survive, giving you a 16.7% chance of surviving this movie. Given those odds, how would Three Fingers keep you from attaining your freedom? Let me know in the comments below. And if this is your first time on my channel, have a look around. Mi canal, su canal. And go ahead and subscribe if you see something you like. And please don't hesitate to share some videos and invite friends to check it out if it's something that's up their alley. Also, I still have that digital copy of Selfie Man to give away. So to enter, here's what you will need to do. Share this video on any of your social medias, and let me know what platforms you shared it on in the comment section below. You must put it in the comment section below or I can't count it. Each platform that you share it in will get you 1 entry into the drawing. But again, I can't count it unless you mention it in the comments below of this video. Alrighty guys, stay tuned for all the future installments of the Wrong Turn franchise and any other movies I cover in between. And as always, survivors, thanks and don't die.
Hello, internet fans. Do you want to learn about horror movies that you never knew existed? Do you miss the video store but not the late fees? Then join us at 3B Video, where we talk about stuff like this, and this, and this. If you'll excuse me, I've got some videotapes to return. You like Huey Lewis in the news?
That is adequate.